Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at some pretty baffling mysteries.
Yeah, mysteries that have fascinated people for
Yeah,
centuries.
those cases where people just vanish without a trace.
Into thin air.
Exactly. It's like the earth just swallowed them up, and
It really makes you wonder what happened.
it does. And it makes you question, everything you thought you knew about the world.
Absolutely. These disappearances really tap into that deep fear of the unknown. That sense that there are things out there we just can't explain.
Yeah, and the two cases we're diving into today are real classics. The Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers
Mhm.
and the crew of the Mary Celeste.
Oh, those are great ones. Both of them have been debated and analyzed for over 100 years and still no definitive answers.
I know, and that's what makes them so fascinating, right? You can read all the theories and examine the evidence, but there's always that little bit of doubt.
And I think what makes these maritime mysteries so compelling is that sense of isolation, the vastness of the ocean. It's this powerful force that we can't fully control, you know.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the eerie feeling of these cases. All right, so first up, let's head to the Flannan Isles off the coast of Scotland. Picture this, you've got this desolate, windswept island called Eilean Moor. Just sheer cliffs and crashing waves. It's as remote as it gets.
And on that island, perched right on the edge of those cliffs, is the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, built in 1899. It was meant to guide ships through those treacherous waters, but you can imagine how isolated the keepers must have felt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just three men alone on this rocky outcrop, their world reduced to the sound of the wind and the waves.
Exactly. And don't forget about the weather conditions out there. Those North Atlantic storms could be brutal. So the lighthouse keepers relied heavily on their oilskins, those heavy waterproof coats, to survive.
If you were caught in a storm without one, well, your chances weren't good. Now, the lighthouse itself was built to withstand those elements, but the keepers, they were still vulnerable. And that's what makes the disappearance of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur so unsettling.
It really is. So picture this December 26, 1900. The relief ship, the Hesperus, arrives at the island, expecting to swap out the keepers.
Right, routine visit.
Exactly. But when they get there, no one is there to greet them. The lighthouse is completely empty.
It's like they vanished into thin air.
It is, and the details just add to the mystery. The lamp was cleaned and ready, but the clock had stopped. Half-eaten meals were on the table, a chair was overturned.
Okay, that's starting to get creepy, like they left in a hurry.
Exactly, and here's the thing, 2 of the 3 oilskins were missing.
So two of the keepers went outside in the middle of whatever happened, but left one coat behind?
Yeah, and there were no signs of a struggle or any bodies. It's as if they just stepped off the island and disappeared.
Wow, okay, so we've got a locked room mystery, but on a remote island.
Pretty much. And the logbook adds another layer of intrigue. It mentions a fierce storm just days before the disappearance.
Right. I read about that. Entries about high winds and rough seas.
Yeah.
The keepers even wrote about feeling unusual fear.
Yeah, it paints a pretty unsettling picture, and it leads to one of the most popular theories, the giant wave theory.
Okay, so the idea is that a massive rogue wave hit the island and swept the keepers away.
Exactly. We're talking waves over 100 feet high, capable of swallowing a person whole. And remember the damaged railing near the cliffs. That could be evidence of a powerful wave striking the island.
That's a pretty terrifying thought, but wasn't the lighthouse designed to withstand those conditions? I mean, could a wave really reach the keepers inside the structure?
Well, that's one of the arguments against the rogue wave theory. The lighthouse was built to be incredibly sturdy, and some people argue that there's no official record of a storm strong enough to create such a wave at that time.
Okay, so maybe the storm wasn't the culprit. But the logbook does mention that the keepers were on edge even before the storm hit.
Right. And that brings us to another theory, one that focuses on the human element.
Oh, you mean like one of the keepers snapping?
Exactly. One of the keepers, Donald MacArthur, had a bit of a reputation for having a temper. Some people speculate that maybe he lost control and lashed out at his colleagues.
Hold on, are you suggesting he killed the other two keepers? But then why would he disappear too?
That's the biggest hole in the MacArthur theory, right? If he did harm the other keepers, wouldn't he have stayed put? Maybe tried to cover up his actions?
Yeah, and there were no signs of a struggle or any bloodstains, as you said before.
Right, it's a puzzle within a puzzle. If MacArthur did snap, what happened next? Where did he go?
So we've got the giant wave theory and the mad keeper theory, but neither of them quite fits perfectly.
Exactly. Both have their strengths and weaknesses, and that's what keeps us debating these cases even after all this time.
It's like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle with some pieces missing. You can see the general picture, but there are always gaps.
Exactly. And those gaps are what fuel our curiosity and keep us searching for answers.
Well, so far we've got some pretty earthly explanations. But what about those theories that venture into the realm of the unknown?
You mean the ones that send chills down your spine?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because those are sometimes the most fun to consider.
Oh, I agree. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction.
All right, so let's delve into those theories that go beyond the ordinary.
Let's see what other possibilities lurk beneath the surface of this mystery.
This is where things get really interesting, right? Because we've explored the more logical explanations like the storm or a possible conflict between the keepers. But there's always that nagging feeling that maybe something else was at play.
Yeah, sometimes the simplest explanation isn't always the right one. And when you're dealing with a case like this with so many unknowns, it's hard not to let your imagination wander.
Right. And I was reading about some old sailor tales from the region legends about strange lights seen near the Flannan Isles. And it got me thinking, what if there was some truth to those stories? What if the keepers didn't disappear because of a storm or a fight, but because of something more extraordinary?
Oh, I like where you're going with this. You're thinking about the possibility of the keepers being taken by something not of this world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but think about it. We're talking about a remote island shrouded in mystery and folklore. There are stories of fairies and sea monsters and even phantom ships in that area.
Right, and let's not forget those tales of the blue men of the Minch, those mischievous water spirits who could supposedly control the weather and lure sailors to their doom.
Oh yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
They always creep me out. But seriously though, is it so crazy to think that maybe some of those legends have a grain of truth? Maybe there's something more to the Flannan Isles than meets the eye.
It's definitely a possibility, and one that's hard to completely dismiss, especially when you consider that we still don't have a definitive explanation for what happened to the keepers.
Right. All the evidence we have is circumstantial and open to interpretation. So why not consider all the possibilities, even the ones that seem a little out there?
I agree. I think it's important to keep an open mind when dealing with mysteries like this, because sometimes the most unexpected explanation turns out to be the right one.
Okay, so let's say for a moment that we entertain the idea of something supernatural being involved. What kind of creature or entity could have taken the keepers?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, the Flannan Isles are steeped in folklore, so there's no shortage of potential culprits. You've got your fairies, your kelpies, your sea monsters, and even those mysterious blue men of the Minch.
It's like a supernatural buffet of suspects, and each one comes with its own set of intriguing possibilities.
Exactly. And it's up to us to decide which one, if any, fits the bill.
All right, but let's be realistic for a moment. While the supernatural theories are definitely fun to ponder, we do have to acknowledge that there's no concrete evidence to support them.
That's true. But at the same time, there's no concrete evidence to refute them either. And that's what makes these cases so perplexing. We're left with a lot of questions and very few answers.
It's like a giant cosmic jigsaw puzzle where we only have a handful of pieces and no picture on the box to guide us.
Exactly. And that's the challenge and the allure of these mysteries. They force us to use our imagination to fill in the gaps and to grapple with the unknown.
Okay, so maybe we'll never know for sure what happened to the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers, but at least we can appreciate the enduring mystery of it all.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe someday new evidence will come to light that will finally solve this puzzle. But until then, the speculation and the debate will continue.
So let's shift gears for a moment and talk about our other maritime mystery, the Mary Celeste.
Ah,
Now, this case is a bit different from the Flannan Isles because we're not just dealing with missing people, but with an entire ship that was found abandoned and adrift.
right. The Mary Celeste is often referred to as the ultimate ghost ship. And it's a case that has baffled researchers and historians for just as long as the Flannan Isles mystery.
I remember reading about it and being totally creeped out. The idea of a ship sailing on its own with no crew is just so unsettling.
It is. It's like something out of a horror movie. And the details of the case just add to the eeriness.
Okay, so give me the rundown. What exactly happened to the Mary Celeste?
All right, so picture this. It's 1872, and a British brigantine named the Dei Gracia is sailing through the Atlantic Ocean. On December 5th, they spot another ship about 6 miles away.
Just sailing along, seemingly normal?
Yeah, but as they get closer, they realize something's not quite right. The ship is sailing erratically, and there's no one on deck.
Okay, that's definitely cause for concern. So what do they do?
Well, they cautiously approach the ship and realize it's the Mary Celeste. The Dei Gracia's captain knows the Mary Celeste captain, Benjamin Briggs. They had actually dined together just a few days earlier.
So it's not just some random ship they stumbled upon. It's a vessel they have connection to.
Exactly. So you can imagine their confusion and concern when they see the Mary Celeste like this. They send a boarding party to investigate, and what they find is truly bizarre.
All right, lay it on me. What was so strange about the Mary Celeste?
Well, first of all, there's no sign of the crew anywhere. The ship is completely deserted. But here's the thing. The ship is in perfect condition. There's no damage, no signs of a struggle. It's as if the crew just vanished into thin air.
Hold on. So the ship is just sailing along perfectly fine, but there's no one on board to steer it.
That's right. And it gets even weirder. The cargo is untouched. The personal belongings of the crew are still there. There's even food and water supplies for months.
Okay, so it doesn't look like they were attacked or robbed, and they didn't starve to death. So where did they go?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that has haunted researchers for centuries.
So the crew just up and left a perfectly good ship with all their belongings and enough supplies to last for months. It doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't. And that's why the Mary Celeste has become such an enduring mystery, because it defies all logical explanations.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the theories that have been put forward to try to explain this baffling disappearance.
All right, let's see if we can make some sense of this maritime enigma.
One of the most popular theories is the lifeboat escape gone wrong theory.
Right, the idea here is that the crew encountered some sort of problem, maybe a leak or a small fire, and they panicked thinking the ship was going down.
So they abandoned ship in a hurry, taking to the lifeboat for safety.
Exactly. But then for whatever reason, they were unable to get back to the Mary Celeste, and the ship just continued to sail on its own.
Okay, that makes some sense. But if they thought the ship was sinking, why leave behind all their valuables and supplies? I mean, wouldn't they have taken everything they could carry?
You would think so, right? And that's one of the weaknesses of this theory. It doesn't fully explain why the crew would leave behind so much if they truly believed they were in imminent danger.
Plus, the Mary Celeste was found in pretty good condition. There was no sign of any major damage or leaks. So what were they running from?
Yeah, that's another point against the lifeboat theory. It just doesn't quite add up.
All right, so what other theories are on the table?
Well, another theory that's been proposed is the alcohol fumes explosion theory.
You mentioned earlier that the Mary Celeste was carrying a cargo of industrial alcohol, right? So
Oh,
the idea is that some of those barrels leaked, releasing flammable vapors.
exactly. And the crew, fearing an imminent explosion, decided to abandon ship.
Okay, that sounds plausible.
Hmm?
But wouldn't an explosion have caused some serious damage to the ship?
You would think so. But the Mary Celeste was found with no signs of fire or explosion damage.
So they abandoned ship because they thought it was about to explode, but it never did.
It seems that way. And that's why the alcohol fumes theory has been largely debunked, because the evidence just doesn't support it.
All right, so we've ruled out the lifeboat theory and the explosion theory. What else could have happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste?
Well, some people believe that the crew was the victim of foul play.
You mean like a pirate attack?
Exactly. Pirates were still a threat in the Atlantic Ocean in the 19th century. And it's possible that the Mary Celeste was boarded by a group of pirates who took the crew hostage, or worse.
But wouldn't the pirates have ransacked the ship and stolen the cargo? I mean, pirates are known for their looting.
True. But there's also the possibility that these weren't your typical treasure-hungry pirates. Maybe they were after something else, maybe information, or maybe they had a more sinister motive.
Okay, so we're talking about pirates with a hidden agenda. That's an interesting twist.
It is, and it adds another layer of intrigue to the Mary Celeste mystery.
Wow.
But again, we have to acknowledge that there's no concrete evidence to support the pirate theory.
No signs of a struggle, no stolen goods. It's all very puzzling.
It is. And that's why this case continues to fascinate us, because it's a mystery that may never be fully solved.
We're left with more questions than answers and a whole lot of speculation.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It forces us to think outside the box, to consider all the possibilities, and to embrace the unknown.
It's a reminder that there are still mysteries in this world that defy explanation.
And that's a good thing, because it keeps us curious, it keeps us asking questions, and it keeps us searching for answers.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the mysteries of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse and the Mary Celeste, and we've delved into some of the most popular theories surrounding these cases.
And while we may never know for sure what happened to the missing people, I think we can all agree that these cases are a testament to the enduring power of mystery.
Absolutely. And they serve as a reminder that there are still things in this world that we may never fully understand.
And that's okay. Because sometimes the most intriguing questions are the ones that remain unanswered.
Well said.
Ah,
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the mysteries that surround us. You know, it's funny, we started with these two disappearances, so mysterious, and we've gone through all these theories, and we're still no closer to a real answer for either one.
it's true. It's like these mysteries, they just refuse to be solved.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of what keeps us coming back to them, that little question mark hanging over everything.
Yeah, it definitely keeps you thinking. And while we were talking about all these different explanations, I was reminded of this book I read about the psychology of mysteries. It said our brains are wired to look for patterns, for reasons, for explanations. So when we come across something that doesn't fit neatly into a category, it's like this mental itch we got to scratch.
Oh, that makes so much sense. We're storytellers at heart, aren't we? We want to make sense of things. So these mysteries, they give us this space to let our imaginations run wild. We try to fill in the blanks with our own ideas, our experiences, even our fears sometimes.
It's like those optical illusions, where you can see two different images depending on how you look at it.
Mhm.
These mysteries are kind of like that. There are all these different angles, different ways of interpreting the evidence, and in the end, it's up to each person to decide what makes the most sense to them.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. There's no one right answer. We can weigh the evidence, argue about the theories, but the mystery itself remains unsolved. It reminds us that there are things in this world we may never fully grasp.
That's a really powerful thought, especially these days when we're constantly bombarded with information and expected to have an opinion on everything. Sometimes it's okay to just admit we don't know, to embrace that uncertainty.
I couldn't agree more. It's actually quite freeing in a way. It lets go of the need to have all the answers. It allows us to appreciate the ambiguity and to acknowledge that sometimes the most fascinating questions are the ones that stay unanswered.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the vanished ocean, what are you left thinking about? What really stuck with you?
For me, it's the image of the Mary Celeste, that silent ghost ship drifting across the vast ocean. It's a reminder that the sea holds so many stories, some we may never unravel.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. For me, it's that logbook entry from the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, that mention of unusual fear among the keepers. It's just chilling.
It is. It speaks to the power of these stories to capture our imagination long after we've heard them.
Well, I think we've given everyone plenty to ponder today. Maybe our listeners will come up with their own theories to explain these disappearances.
And that's what we hope for, to spark curiosity, to encourage people to explore the mysteries that surround us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds open. And remember, sometimes the most fascinating journey is the one that leads us right into the heart of a mystery.